So huge thanks, we're live. Look, it did say poor connection there for a moment, so I may have to come back onto this live at some point. Huge thanks for joining myself. It's a completely different lineup today. It's different, certainly, and this year is going to be all about difference as well. Look, you can see Neil in the picture. I just want to, we'll run through who's who in the room in just a moment, but let me just swivel the camera around and let me just see. Okay. So you've got Claire, Lauren and Nicola. Let me just... So Neil, let's come to you first of all.
Okay. Hello guys.
So Neil Mangan, yeah. So
thank you, Brendan Quinn.
Okay. So property, you've been involved in property quite a few years, although your profile really has risen in the last year, Neil. So in 30 seconds or less, so for our listeners, who are you in terms of property?
Been a landlord 17 years and moving into developments now with my business partner Alicia Farrell. We've identified some sites. We haven't announced them yet because we're building relationships with different modular home suppliers, flats and houses. So that's where we're headed. Clearly from last year, it was a different direction.
Sure, thank you, Neil. So let's just swivel over. Claire?
Yep.
So, in terms of property, and you've been recommended to me to speak a number of times, so I'm sure at some point in 2018 it will happen. I know you're working really closely with Steve at the moment, Steve Colley?
Steve Colley, yes.
Yeah, good.
And Sophie Alley, who's
Sophie
his partner.
Alley,
yeah.
Plymouth. Your background in property in 30 seconds, if people don't know who you are?
Okay, I mean, I've been doing up and renovating and selling on properties for about 20 years, but in the last 4 years I started sort of working more professionally and working with some buying agents called Temple Field, buying for investors, doing up properties, ex-local authority in London, adding value, getting them rented out. Now we're doing developments down in Plymouth, so I'm sort of doing more my own thing.
Is that the Plymouth developments with Steve, or...?
That's with Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, and a team of 5 down there.
Brilliant. So we'll come back in a moment. Just let me swivel over. Well, I'm not swiveling over, the camera is. Lauren.
Hi.
Hi. So you've got an interesting background. Most recently with a food company, but you've moved into property, or maybe you were in property before. Property sourcing, from what I understand, is your major activity. How would you describe yourself to listeners who've never heard of you before?
That's a good question. So essentially, I'm a property sourcer now with ambitions to get into property development, ideally by the end of 2018. My background is in healthcare management and healthcare operations, mostly from a project manager based or an operational role in A&Es and GP practices. And my most previous role with the food company was as an operations manager for Deliveroo. So a bit of a around the houses way into property, but why not?
So let me just swivel the camera. This is quite a big room today compared to Camden. Nicola, I could do your presentation for you, but...
Yeah, so I bought my first house when I was really young, when I was 20, and then did a number of renovations on the houses I was living in. So I realised I had an eye for it and a passion for it. So the last 3 or 4 years I've done a handful of sort of buy, renovate, flip and sell.
Brilliant. Look, if you want to specifically hear about Nicola, come along tomorrow morning to the Central London Property Network. So I will include the link. Let me just add you on, Augusta. I've never really quite understood this bringing on, but it may or may not do. Okay. So if you want to come into the conversation, Augusta, you'll come into conversation tomorrow anyway, because you'll be at my morning meet and evening meet. Look, the focus of this Facebook Live is to look at transition. So in terms of 2017, and we're at the beginning of 2018. So Neil, while you're here closest to me, 2017, what did it mean for you in terms of property? And what would be the takeaway lessons as well? How was 2017 different to 2016 for you?
I think 2017 was I think what really changed a lot of things was doing the Property Go Live course with yourself and you, Claire.
Yes.
That really was quite a fundamental change with hindsight now, simply because, you know, at the time everybody clearly was aware of Facebook and stuff.
So, Neil, not everyone will know who Property Go Live is organised by. So it's organised by Nicole Bremner, her team, including Marina Conway-Gordon and Rob Lee. So
Jane was there as well.
James Glocks, yeah. Okay, but it's Nicole's team plus Rob Lee, so that's Property Go Live. But what were you saying about Property Go Live and social media? You came into it more so in 2017?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, since doing the course, the number of things that stuck out in my mind, what Nicole said was prolific, not perfect. I think that's the title of the next book even. You know, just keep posting. If I think back to some of my first posts, they're just a bit out there and a bit raw, but at the same time, over time you get...
But sometimes those are the best ones as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But,
because I don't want to interrupt you too much, but we're sort of like creatures of habit and we get used to a certain way. But so, you know, I was reading a post online today which said, you know, if you're doing what all the gurus tell you, you know, you're going to get one effect, and if you sort of like go against what the mainstream, you're yeah, it certainly was. Claire, look, it's not an advertisement for Nicole as such, but is it useful to have foundations? I have to admit, I got benefits out of doing that Property Go Live as well. What did you get benefit from Property Go Live, which allowed you to continue your transition in 2016 or 2017? So,
do you know, it was like Neil, it was completely pivotal for me. It slightly blew my mind, in fact, you know, that idea that you don't have to put perfect content out there. And in fact, they don't want perfect content. They want to see the real you and get to know the real you. And you've got to build a brand by being who you are. You know, you don't want to, we can't all be Nicole Bremner. And if we were, it wouldn't work. You know, we've got to form our own niche. And yeah, that's been hugely liberating for me. Definitely.
Nicola, let's just raise your voice up slightly, because
Yes.
I can't see you on screen. Are you on? Yeah.
This is with a little yellow patch behind.
Okay. So in terms of property,
Yeah.
what? I know you weren't on Nicole's course,
No. Well,
but
for me,
you've got quite a good hand on terms of social media.
I don't know. But for me, I think what changed in 2017 was that I'd been doing all the work before on my own. I've been self-funding, managing, developing, and I just didn't realise that circles were around. And that's what I discovered in 17, and that's been, you know, it's been a big part of the change for me, is seeing that they're just move forward with a network of people that will, you know, will support each other, share any information they have on strategies, on financials, contacts, you know, and help each other out. And I think us property people, we need that. I think that property business can be quite a lonely game, and that's what's lovely about it, is everyone's willing to help everyone else out. There's no kind of like, oh, that's my deal, or, you know, it's just an open sharing place. So that was a big change.
Do you think the influence of being aligned to No Agent was useful as well? Because look, Callum's not listening to this. I don't think I'm connected to Callum on Facebook. But Callum Brannan's fresh young guy, 20s.
Yeah, I think he's 30 next year.
So he's still in his 20s.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, you know, one of the bits of advice I was always given, well, not always given, but by Rene Carrel, was having people in your circle, he sort of like said, in a team who are under 30, because they're going to think really differently. You know, and I suppose that goes to you, Claire, in a way, because, you know, Sophie, I think, is under 30.
She's 25.
Wow.
I mean, she's you know, a little tiny thing.
Yeah.
She's got this amazing financial background. She can analyse deals like no one's business, and so I'm actually learning from her. And yet she can learn from me because I've sort of been around the block a few more times. So, you know, there's definitely lots of sort of cross-fertilisation. And And I think what you were saying, Nicola, just that sort of cross-fertilisation that comes with collaborating with people, and you can only do that when you go out and networking.
Look, I would just ask you if there's any deals. Niels, have you mentioned on Facebook about deals and so forth? Please do wait until this Facebook Live is over and then connect with Neil and so forth in the room, because I know you're keen to connect with all of the people. Look, in terms of connections, how did you connect with Steve in the first place? Because Steve's based outside of London. You know, so it's interesting. I look at people who are based outside of London, and I look how they've built their brands. One person is Ryan Carruthers.
Yes.
And I think, wow. And the reason why I think wow is because it's a lot easier. Maybe it's my misperception. If you're based in London, it's a lot easier because you don't have to travel here. You've already got a network. You know, if you're a member of a private members club, there's an inner network there. So how did you connect with Steve?
Well, there was, I think, 6 months or so last year when Steve and Sophie were literally coming up to London every single week. So they just made it their mission to network, and, you know, that's going to be in London.
What impressed you about Steve's brand?
I went to hear him talk at the Kensington Pin, and he was talking about his journey in France when he'd been a developer, how he'd sort of come back to London, to England, and was starting fresh here. And I just loved his energy. It was that really that attracted me to him, and his values and everything about him. I just thought, I want to work with this guy, and I am. I actually started as a mentee of his, and
Sure.
we're now sort of business partners.
Lauren, and Rudy, let me just see if I can bring you in. I tried to bring Rudy on camera. Okay, it's a little bit tricky on an iPhone, but let me just swivel this around. Lauren, so you're relatively new to my circle. I know Nicola really well, and Neil, I would say, you know, weekly basis, sometimes daily basis.
Phone habits.
Yeah. So I know you've gone through a little bit about your background in terms of sourcing and Deliveroo, and you know, people do look at Deliveroo as being one of the leaders in technology. Did anything you learned from Deliveroo you thought that's worth me trying to implement in my property business, or is it quite difficult to align the two?
Really good question, actually. I used to wish I had come up with the value proposition that Deliveroo had. It was so simple, their value proposition. And to be honest, that's the biggest thing I suppose I've taken from Deliveroo, is make it simple. You know, I'm an operational person, I get into project management, so I can complicate things if I want to. And the biggest lesson I've learned there is actually simplify it, and simplify what you do, and that will help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. So that's a big thing.
And in terms of moving from being an employee or contractor to being self-employed or creating your own business, look, Neil was discussing about foundations, about Property Go Live. What have been, and Claire, you were discussing the importance of building a relationship with mentors. What would you say has been the most important transformation change in 2017 moving into 2018? Was it about mentors, coaches, systems? What was important?
So for me, my whole 2017 goal was to find out who's who in the zoo and figure out.
We're in the zoo.
But find out who are the people who are actually successful, who are the ones who are making changes, who are the ones that I want to aspire to be. So kind of my mission was to go and build relationships with people. And you know, I'd met Steve as well at the Kensington Pale. Neil, I've seen some of your work, Nicola, and get to know some of yours. So that was kind of what a big focus was for me, is to build relationships that I could take into 2018 and figure out the kind of business that I wanted to grow, and find the people that would help me do that into 2018. So that was my big mission.
Okay, so it's interesting. You mentioned about looking at people, looking at the key players in the industry. How do you, one, connect with the key players in the industry? Because, you know, for example, I don't think any of us, like Nicole, for example. Nicole's one of the major players in the industry. She's always getting requests on social media and so forth. So, for example, how have you built a relationship with Nicole or John Corrie? I know you did a podcast with Ryan about a few weeks ago, Ryan Carruthers. So how have you sort of like attracted them? I know, you know, Sarah told me about yourself as well. So you've got some people really influential who've got, you know, high respect for you. How have you managed to create that link and connection? What advice would you give to our listeners out here today? Oh, Marina, you're joining us as well. Okay. What advice would you give to listeners out there who are thinking about building relationships? What's your key piece of advice?
My key piece is, if you don't ask, you don't get. I used to be stressed myself about talking to big players. You know, I do, Nicole is actually one of my mentors at the moment, and how I was able to kind of work with her and work with John and work with Ryan is just
John Corey.
John Corey, yeah, just going and talking to them and asking them further advice and having an actual question rather than, I just need help with everything, or do you have an hour of your time? And they don't have an hour of their time, that's the reality. So I would go with a particular question saying, you know, I'm having trouble with this, there's something you could help me with, or could you point me in the right direction of something that can help? So a big part of that is just kind of appreciating who you're speaking to, appreciating that the time is precious, and they are very generous with the time. And like you said, Nicola, I couldn't believe the amount of people who would actually be willing to help anybody in this scenario. So my biggest advice is to, you know, is to think about who you want to speak to, know what you want to ask them, and make sure that it's actually something that you want to know about, rather than just asking them a random question to curry favour, because you're one of a million in that scenario.
Neil, just let me just swivel this camera around for one moment. Look, people are going to think, you know, transformation in 2018, it's hard to remember it's 2018, but social media is one key part. Branding, you know, people will look holistically at branding. People who are starting this journey thinking, look, maybe we can do some Facebook Lives, maybe we can do interviews. Ryan's done podcasts. You've done your own interviews with the likes of Thierry Lemaire, I think twice.
That's right, yeah, twice,
maybe
yeah.
more. So what would your piece of advice be about using video?
Clearly, I can only talk from my own experience. I think firstly, just do it. Don't overthink it, just do it. Have a certain theme in mind. Clearly, have a certain strategy in mind. But regardless of how it may be perceived, just do it. And keep on doing it. And the more you do it, you will get better, because it's sooner or later you're going to have to start at some point. So, and no one's an expert when they first start. But clearly, the more you do it, it becomes a habit.
So Neil, you've got bases in London and Coventry in terms of your property meets. So it's about systemization is probably key to you.
Yeah.
So
CRMs, having CRMs in place.
Okay, so just elaborate on CRMs for me.
But I use MailChimp.
Okay.
I know you do.
No, I don't use MailChimp.
No. Oh, right, okay, I use MailChimp, and I'm finding if you're obviously the busier we get, you need to have more systems in place. I've now started, because I use Social Pilot as well.
Sure.
All my social media, it links in all in one place: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Tumblr. There's loads more social media platforms that you can use, all in the Social Pilot. So once a week or maybe twice a week, I put a lot of content on there on Social Pilot, and it's just, and you can actually time. So for example, I'm doing 25 tweets a day now. Now, whether or not that's yet to be seen what comeback that generates, but I know just through time and keep on doing social media, it will create opportunities. Since last year, the purpose of the question is to create a lot of opportunities for me in terms of land, and it's all as a result of social media.
But so social media, CRMs you mentioned, using scheduling tools as
Absolutely,
well.
yeah, Social Pilot all the way.
Okay, so let me just open that to the other panelists as well, and feel free to add a comment. So if you want to add a comment, feel free. Let me just swivel this around a bit more.
Or shall I move in?
Yeah, if you can move in.
Come this way. And then,
So, in terms of social media software, you know, I was listening to one of the US's leading figures last night, Neil Patel. He was talking about a different platform. But what platforms are useful for you, whether it's social media or whether it's for your day-to-day property activities? I don't know if any of you are using Land Insight or CRM systems, or what technology or what systems are important for you? Nicola?
I wouldn't say that I'm particularly using anything. 2018, I want to up my social media game.
And what does that mean for you in 2018, up in your game?
Well,
Does that mean, as Neil said, sharing more content, creating more content? Does it mean using the same content which you have and replicating it, if you've got a blog, for example, or creating a blog?
I think perhaps not a blog, but just to get in the habit. I think when you're in the habit of posting, you enjoy posting, you enjoy the feedback, you enjoy looking for something to post about. If you stop posting, it very quickly falls down, and then it's harder to make the next post. I haven't used Facebook all year, but I've actually yesterday said I'm going to start using Facebook, and I changed my pictures. Instagram,
And pictures are so key as well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to name drop Matt Siddell. So I see the pictures of Matt's previous events with PPN Knightsbridge. I know he's moved on to other things, but the photos are a wow factor, and you can see how important they are. But just for you to elaborate on a bit more, Nicola?
So, yeah, my favourite is Instagram. I enjoy using Instagram.
Do you find the returns though on Instagram? Because look, I've got a fairly good Twitter following. You know, nothing like Nicole's now. You know, it was. Well, no, it was more than Nicole's a couple of years ago, I have to admit. But it's not. You know, it was about 5,000 followers on Twitter, and then Nicole's gone up to 11K, I think. I can understand Twitter in a way. Instagram, though, how do you think that works for you?
Well, I haven't focused on it yet. But Claire, you focus on Instagram quite a bit.
I do, and I think I'm doing that because one of the bits of advice I got from Property Go Live was just to try each platform for a few months and just see how it works. But you've got to sort of give it enough time to see what the results are. And I know for me on Instagram, I've connected with all sorts of people just by striking up little conversations.
We have met
without realising who you
yeah.
were. So I think it's been a good way for me to engage with people, and I think that goes for sort of.
So let's say I'm relatively new to Instagram. I've used it a bit. You know, I've posted a bit. Never really built a following in Instagram, which I think is harder than Twitter by a long way. So if people are, you know, what bits of advice would you give, or what would you do differently if you were starting Instagram again?
I think I would. So I think it was Gary Vee. I read.
Sorry, hopefully we don't get interrupted again, otherwise I would just have to. I don't know if I can disable my phone calls. I don't usually get many phone calls.
You're popular today.
Yeah.
No, so Gary Vee talks about documenting your day rather than creating content. And so I think I would just what am I doing now? What am I doing now? And just
and
give
he
people
does that
world.
because he says documenting your day puts less pressure on, you know, it's almost like prolific, not perfect.
Exactly, it is.
I
It's
like
developing
that.
that theme.
Yeah.
And that's really made it easier for me. And I still need to do more of it. But I think Instagram stories as well is a really good way of
And
saying, this is where I am now. This, you know, just
Yeah.
little snippets that make people feel like they're part of your world.
I think that's very important as well, because it's something that I'm really starting on the social platforms, and Facebook is something that I've been using, and I'm working on Facebook and Twitter at the moment. But like you say, it's sharing pieces of yourself, which I'm not that used to doing, and it is a habit, it's a habitual thing. It's like remembering to do X and remembering to post, and then the pressure of creating content. Oh my God, I gotta make this. That can be
You've
a
got to
challenge.
feel
I'm at that
comfortable with
point.
it, and it has to feel comfortable and right for you. Yeah.
But I think I've definitely found Instagram has produced some really good quality contacts for me, whereas Facebook opens it up to, you know, if you have public settings, you get comments from all over the place, but they're not necessarily quality. So at the moment, I'm just personally finding.
And you've actually found more quality
comments. I have to admit, I noticed on Instagram a couple of messages which I missed for weeks. To be fair, I very rarely use Instagram. It's a habit, as you say. It's also I wouldn't say I'm really a skilled photographer as well, but maybe that's.
I don't think it matters. I think that's the thing. It's just to be okay with where you are, and people are just interested in you and your life.
What do you, Claire, Nicola, Lauren? What do you think some of the other key things are for 2018? We've covered. I could easily go into a lot more about, what does social media mean for you? By the way, do you use very briefly LinkedIn, Claire, as well? Or?
I'm on LinkedIn. I need to use it more. That's definitely
But you've really become, the affinity is more with the Instagram.
Yeah, because that's just where I've concentrated. I think LinkedIn has that feeling of you need to be putting out more professional content, and I suppose I'm hesitating over what that might be, but actually I realise I've got an awful lot of valuable content that I could be sharing. You just need to present it in a slightly different way. So yeah, that's something for this year.
Okay. And going back to this year, so building your brand, elaborating on your brand is key. What other things are key for you this year?
Well, we've got the team in place, we've got a lot of good systems in place. We use Trello really successfully.
Okay, so let's focus a little bit more on
I was just going to talk about
Trello.
pipelines. But go on, Trello.
Yeah, so look, some of my listeners may know about Trello. I've heard it a tiny bit, I don't use it. I think I've looked at it for 10 seconds of my life.
I mean, it's free for one thing.
Okay.
But we certainly use the free version. I know Nicole and Estate, they use Basecamp, which I think is a lot more expensive,
Sophisticated.
probably sophisticated. It suffices for us, absolutely.
So what does Trello do for you that other platforms haven't, or what do you use it for?
Well, it means that we barely use email anymore. We only really use email with outside, advisors, consultants, clients. But actually within the team, it means that there's a centralised place where we can share information, we can have an agenda that we add to, we can update the pipeline list, and somebody can go, right, Claire sourced this deal, I'm going to analyse it and I'm going to put it in this card.
So pipeline, just to explain to the listeners out there, because I think I've heard Luke Skelton talk about pipeline. Is that the same particular tool?
A pipeline of, no, I'm not talking about a tool now, I'm talking about a pipeline of deals.
Okay.
Pipeline's a sales tool, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But Trello, I think, because I looked at the Basecamp for a project that I knew going on, and it was expensive actually for the size of the project. And I think the good thing about that is you actually get the track of what's happening. So when you're exchanging emails and texts and WhatsApps, things can get lost in translation and you can forget what people said, but you've got a constant feed of what's been said, so you can backtrack.
You've used Trello?
No, I'm going to.
I think it does do that. There's different ways you can analyse the information in there. So the most recent communication.
Yeah. And everything's in the same place. You don't have to search your email box, search your text message box.
Exactly.
It's all there.
And Lauren, have you looked at using Trello or anything like that? I know Ryan loves Slack.
Well, that was where I was going to go.
Was that Slack? Yeah.
I use both Slack and Trello, and I make them talk to each other.
So can you, I have to admit, I may have looked at Slack for about 5 seconds of my life.
I love Slack.
Yeah. So
yeah, Slack within a company, a big company. How do you use Slack as in your instance?
So essentially what Slack does is it allows you to have one place where you can have multiple different conversations. So you've got pipelines coming in, or you've got multiple deals that you're working on, and you can have it listed on the left. You can have a channel per content. So you have, pipeline 1 this street. That's all the conversation about, so that side of that deal. Yeah. This channel is all about this channel is all about this. And when you have all of your team members, now maybe these 2 members should be allowed to be involved, maybe these 2 members you don't want to have involved, maybe you have an external person who you want to involve just on that one page, on that one channel. It allows you to do that, and if you integrate it with Trello, it will allow you then to, so I use Trello mostly for the to-do lists and stuff like that, so I might say, in my Slack channel, somebody might say something and I might then add a reminder on that to go into my Trello, to go onto that board to remind me to do it.
Link it.
So you can link it. Now, one thing I will just say about all that, which is something I've been talking about, is to be very careful with what information that you are putting through those platforms in relation to the new changes around data protection. Just was the only thing I'll say. So if you are putting any personal information of anybody else, be very mindful about that integration.
These are GDPR, is that right?
Yeah, GDPR. Not trying to throw it in there, but when we're talking about those integrations, it's very important to understand where your information is going. So, but for me,
and GDPR comes into April, is that right?
25th of May, 25th of May this year. Yeah, which will be a big change for.
And you've done a webinar with John Corrie on
Yes.
GDPR.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, I've got my own feelings about GDPR, but what would you say GDPR is in a positive light?
For me, it's actually giving power back to the people, power back to the data subject. So it's our data that we're talking about, and making sure that businesses now have a much bigger responsibility to protect it, and it will stop the kind of things where you're getting mail bombed, constantly with just crap content that you don't want, you never signed up for, and that you can't get out of. So I think it will be a benefit to us as data subjects, but it's a challenge for businesses to become compliant.
So the day is 25th of May.
25th of May, yeah, that's when it starts.
Okay, and it's interesting because it's having an impact here more so than because it's UK law, from what I understand.
It's actually EU law. It's EU law. So from the UK point of view, the UK are still in the EU as of 25th of May, so they have to be compliant with the rules. And then as Brexit comes in the future, our Information Commissioner's Office, so the people who are in charge of all of this data protection conversation, they are creating a new Data Protection Act that will be based in the UK, but it will basically follow everything from the EU GDPR, so it won't change massively.
Look, so we've looked at particularly social media, we've looked at briefly brand building, because brand building is a lot more than just social media, and it's, what do you think, or what's key for your brand this year, Claire? I know you talked about your team in Plymouth. If people can take away one thing from this conversation, or how can they connect with you best, not in terms of platform, but what would get you excited in terms of discussions? Are you looking for particular opportunities?
I think, I was talking about pipelines earlier. Our main priority for this year is to pull in more deals. So we are looking to build relationships with architects, with planners, we're having really good success at the moment getting deals through architects. So just thinking of slightly more creative ways to engage with people who come across deals, as well as the usual sort of agent route, which works well for us as well.
No, I won't name drop the particular architect, but it was interesting having a conversation with them and seeing how open they were to building relationships with developers, being almost a sourcer, not quite a sourcer. So that's fascinating. What's your key activities in the next 3 months, Lauren?
My key activities are delivery. I need to systemize. So 2017 is about learning and setting up. 2018 is about delivery. So it's about making sure I just keep going, and then reevaluate 3 months in and realign the goals.
So I know you're working with Nicole. I won't ask too much, but what's it meant for you? Has it led to, because literally I've seen you on a webinar, or haven't quite watched the webinar. I know you've been on the podcast with Ryan. You're here today, and something else as well. So raising profile is really key. Is there a particular strategy in terms of where you want to be in terms of 3, 6, 9 months in terms of profile? You don't have to share all of it by any stretch, but what would be some of the key things you're looking for this year? What would be some of the opportunities? So, for example, some of the people listening to this particular Facebook Live, whether you're listening live or whether you're listening at a later date, but what would be some of the key takeaways?
Where I want to go kind of this year is to
be able to. I want people to understand who I am. I want people to understand what I can do and what I want to achieve. And what I want to do is work with people who are like-minded and want to do the things that I want to do. So in order for me to achieve that, it's literally going out there and putting myself out there and trying to offer value and trying to solve problems for the people. Because if I don't do that organically, then I actually won't deliver anything. So that's why I'm talking about GDPR, or I'm talking about this, and I'm helping somebody out with that. And because that is authentic to me. And how I want to achieve that is by literally just delivering good value to people and solving problems where I can. And ideally, obviously, as a business, that my opportunities are to find, like you were saying, your pipelines and finding more original sources for deals. So that's something I'm focusing on an awful lot this year.
Nicola, I know you're going to be presenting for me tomorrow morning. It depends when you're listening to this Facebook Live, because it's tomorrow morning is referring to the 10th of January. So people can connect with you, of course, at my summit as well.
Yeah.
So my summit is coming up on the 20th of this month. But what would get you interested? If people want to strike up conversations with you at the summit, are you potentially open to joint ventures, or is it more deals, or is it just an open chat?
Yeah, I think similar to you. I think, as I said earlier, I've been quite underground for a long time, and I'm really enjoying
completely under the radar almost.
Yeah, in a box. I'm really enjoying meeting people. I'm enjoying connecting with people. I'm enjoying listening to their stories. And I think ethic-wise, like you, I think you have to be on the same page. If you meet someone, I'm open to joint ventures. I'm open to deals. I'm open to project managing other people's deals. I just think you have to have the same vision for the project.
Okay, so you're still open to PMing other deals. So if someone comes to you at the summit, there's people listening here thinking, look, we've got the finance, we've got the deal, but we've never done anything like this before.
Yeah, so I've got 2 projects on the go at the moment, which are just residential people, that people with their homes, they want changed. Like one particular job, we're moving staircases, ceilings, totally reconfiguring the inside of the house so they can sort of fit this attic room in. And I enjoy doing that, and they obviously haven't got the experience, so my sort of fee is probably almost covered from the fact that I've got the experience in it. At the moment, I'm open to that.
Geographically, London, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
as close to central London as possible. Yeah.
Claire, you're willing to travel all the way to Plymouth.
Yes, I don't quite know how I've got myself into that one.
So you're at the summit as well.
Yes.
Yeah. What opportunities are you open to? I know you said potential deals as well. Is it mostly working with deals? That's your key focus in 2018?
No? I mean, I am also, hoping to connect with investors. We've got a number of investors we're working with at the moment, and so we're sort of full on that level, but you've always got to be thinking ahead. You can never sort of think, well, we're full. It's always what's next, and developing relationships. I've just sort of been getting friendly with Carolina and Damchick.
Yeah,
we're going to be collaborating.
I love when you mention Carolina. She's on my to-do list in terms of Instagram.
Yes.
Because, she's really changed her Instagram page.
She's upped her game massively.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she absolutely shares my aesthetic. I've got a design background, but she has done more working on commercial developments than me, so I'm going to bring her into our latest one in Plymouth, which is 10 units. I just feel like it's always best to collaborate with people who know that bit more. And, like you said, she shares values and vision, and so we're going to work together on that. And I'm really excited about that. I really am.
Lauren, hopefully you'll be at my summit as well. What can okay? What can people discuss with you? What would be good conversations to have with you?
So I'm looking for some serious investors. I have a pipeline lined up that's very exciting, and it would need some serious investors to allow this to work. So that's kind of what I'm looking for at the moment, and anybody with kind of any interesting opportunities for sourcing deals.
Look, if people have already Tony Egan, he can't make the summit. He's already got himself booked in somewhere else, not another event, nothing like that. So he won't be at the summit, but I'm sure people will connect with him outside of the summit. How can people connect with you, whether they're coming to the summit or not? Maybe they're coming down to London on a Friday, or maybe they're just in London on a regular basis but can't make the summit. We'll start with you, Nicola. Let me just...
Facebook me, we can link me to this live, can't we? And then you
Oh, that's a bit too complex for me.
I will make
I'm
a
not-
comment underneath, and then you'll be able to link with me on Facebook, also LinkedIn.
Okay. Those are your two.
Or come tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
Or
So
tomorrow morning for
because
the
I've got
meetings.
2 events tomorrow. I've got an evening
Wow.
event as well. So Claire, how can people connect with you? Who, whether they can come to a summit, whether they can come to, Plymouth, but you might, not all the time you're based in Plymouth.
No, I'm up here, but 3 weeks out of every 4. So, I mean, I've just signed up for a year with you, Brendan.
Okay.
So I'm going to be coming to as many of your events as
Sure.
possible. I go to John Corey's now regularly. I go to Elsie's Women in Property event. So, any of those I'm around. I'd love to meet up with people. But obviously, like you, Nicola, Facebook is good,
So,
and Instagram.
If you can add a comment after, because
Yeah.
what Nicola wants me to do, I don't have a clue how to do.
We'll show you, Brendan.
And Lauren, in terms of people connecting with you, what's your preference?
Again, Facebook, Twitter, email, Laura
What-
at lightdevelopments.com.
Yeah. Okay. At the after we do the video, if you can just add a comment, put your preferred method. Look, we haven't had any questions. It's been very different to the one we did pre-Christmas. So I don't know.
We had the crackers, didn't we, pre-Christmas?
Did you?
Yeah.
What prizes did you give people?
Well, we did give.
The jokes.
One of the prizes was my Central London Evening Property Network
Yeah.
at the end of this month. A very interesting person who's coming along who won that prize. I won't say anything more than that, but really very, very interesting company behind that particular winner. Look, I just want to say huge thanks because look, this brings a closure to my Crease Summit videos, Facebook Live. It's, I want to say huge thanks to Augusta Oyinke Ilumia who started this with Mafus Raman in October. Then we had is it really pre-Christmas or it's Christmas more than pre-Christmas? But Christmas we had the likes of Dick Sesh, Ronald Fletcher Baker, Stuart Ross. Have I got his name right? Hopefully, yes, Stuart Ross from Inspired Asset Management. And now today I want to say huge thanks before my phone buzzes off again to Claire, Lauren, and Nicola. Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.